What is going on YouTube? Welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be talking about the Leopard Gecko. So we're going to be doing a full review on his setup and how you guys can do an exact similar setup for about $135. I've seen a lot of videos where they set up reptile enclosures for like under $100 or close to 50 bucks if you're looking like on Craigslist and other used sources. But today we're going to be talking about like a realistic where you can buy things for pretty much brand new for under $135 or around that price, and that's going to be specifically for Leopard Gecko and what they have in their enclosure, what they specifically need, and then to go along with that, it's also going to be like a semi-naturalistic setup. So we're not going to be using repti carpet, we're not going to be using paper towels, and it's going to look sort of how it's going to look somewhat appealing to us, and then obviously it's going to be appealing to the Leopard Gecko, as well as implementing all of the necessary things that they need to survive and strive. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Hope everyone's doing good. We've got all the animals doing well, everyone's fed and happy. A lot of these websites are going to be Amazon and Chewy, so you guys should be able to find these pretty easily. And there's a couple things that I did get at my local pet store, but again, those things you can find pretty much anywhere, if not online. So let's get into it. There's going to be way too much glare in here for that. So for the sole purpose of this video today, I've added on my Exoterra hood from the frog enclosure just for the purpose of this video so we can see into the tank. He doesn't have a UVB light on it. This is a UVB bulb and it's only emitting about 13 watts, so it shouldn't heat up his tank in the meantime of this video. Again, this is only for the video. I don't actually have this set up on his tank. With that being said, this is his enclosure. It is a 20-gallon long aquarium. This is something I picked up at PetSmart. And first thing on our list is the actual enclosure. You guys can go with Rubbermaid tubs. You can go with aquariums like this. You can go with an Exoterra setup. But this is, I found, the cheapest route that looks the most naturalistic, or at least the best in a room setting. So what you can do, PetSmart and Petco both do this. If you guys don't support the bigger chain companies like PetSmart and Petco, I totally understand. But for supplies like this, I feel like you're not necessarily supporting the animal trade, which is selling live animals from, you know, the big breeders that don't necessarily take care of their animals that well. But for supplies like this, aquariums, heaters, thermostats, things like that, I think it's okay, especially once they got the sales and the deals going on. PetSmart and Petco, they both do the $1 per gallon sale, so 20 bucks, you get yourself a nice brand new aquarium. This obviously does not come with a lid since it's sold as an aquarium, but you can buy these external lids and you can get these online for, I believe, about $11.99. Now that we've got the tank and the lid, what we're going to go ahead and do is talk about substrate. This is probably the most controversial topic with reptiles and leopard geckos in particular, because leopard geckos like to lick everything. That's how they know their surroundings, what they're walking on top of. A huge topic is impaction. I don't recommend sand, I don't recommend cedar, pine, anything like that. But this is Eco-Earth. It's a ground coconut husk. It's a very fine powdery like substance. It's a very light substrate, so if they do ingest some of it, it's not going to cause impaction and they should be able to pass it through. If you guys want to play it safe, then you can definitely go with paper towels or repti carpet or a slate of some sort. But for a naturalistic setup, I think Eco-Earth is a good option. A 24-quart bag of this stuff through Chewy is going to go for about $11.99. That's without shipping. That should give you a good inch to inch and a half layer in the enclosure. Moving on from this, as you guys can see, there are 3 main hides in the enclosure with, of course, you know, a couple plants and then the logs that he can kind of hide under. But the actual designated hides we've got are 2 of the half logs here. These are like the very simple wood half logs. I think they go for 15 bucks for 2, or you can find them individually. They go for anywhere between 3 to 8 bucks. I'll post up a couple options, but you guys can obviously research on Amazon and find different methods of hides. I would recommend Tupperware, but for a naturalistic setup, that's not very naturalistic. Whereas these wood hides look a little bit better, and this middle one is a little bit more important. For this purpose, you could use a half log and make it look naturalistic and not use a Tupperware, this is where I'd spend the money and actually buy this particular hide. This is going to be their moist hide, very important for their shed. Since they're in more of a dry habitat, they're going to need an area where they can go in and soak up some extra moisture for that shed. In there is sphagnum moss, and you pretty much spray that down so that they have that humidity that's held in there. Why I think it's important to have this particular hide is because it holds in that moisture, whereas these half logs are more open, air is going to get to it, whereas this one is more enclosed. He's going to go in that small hole there and soak up that humidity. That is going to run you about $10 on Chewy, and you guys can find those online as well. That is the medium size. I would say that's the smallest one you'd want to go with. He is a juvenile male. He is a pretty large lizard already, but not full grown, and he barely fits in this one. So eventually I'll upgrade him to a large, but for now the medium works fine. He can get in and out, no issue. Moving along to things that are in the enclosure is a water dish. This one is a bit big for the setup. I like the design, and I actually took it from the frog enclosure. So this water dish is more than enough. This will run you about $8 at PetSmart, but you can find water dishes a lot cheaper on Amazon for anywhere between $3 to $5. Just for some decorations in the enclosure, you can pick up these plants for about $2 or $3 at PetSmart. And again, you can go online and probably find them cheaper than that, if not the same price. So running along down here is going to be his thermostat, and the heat mat is underneath. I think this one is the 16 watt. It covers about maybe a fourth or a third of the enclosure. It probably comes out to about there, which I'd say is about a third of the enclosure. You want his heat mat obviously on one side. If you guys don't know or haven't done the research, leopard geckos need to thermoregulate. So this is going to be the hottest point of his enclosure where the heat mat is, and the further away he goes from it is going to be the coldest point where his cold hide is over here. I'll throw up a picture so you guys can see what the actual thermostat I bought was off of Amazon was, but that's going for $18.99, and then the heat mat I believe is somewhere around $25. So the heat mat's actually a significant amount of money, but it's a very, very important part of this setup. So as well as the thermostat, heat mats will just keep rising in temperature. You don't know exactly what the temp is. They can get burned. The hot spot can be, of course, too hot. So they do need a thermostat to regulate that temperature. With the 20 gallon in particular, I think it's super important that people go with a minimum 20 gallon long, not a 10 gallon, just because there's not enough space for the heat to disperse for him to thermoregulate. For instance, a 10 gallon up here, if you have a heat pad on this side, there's only about 15 inches for the heat to disperse, and I don't think that's enough space for it to cool down to the temperature that he needs on the cool side if he is getting too hot. So a 10 gallon I would not recommend even for a juvenile. I would recommend a 20 gallon. It's only about 10 inches longer, and it's only a few dollars more, so I would definitely recommend just upgrading to a 20 gallon. So we've talked about his enclosure, we've talked about the lid, substrate, the moist hide, cool and hot hide. We've talked about the plants, his water dish, the heat pad, the thermostat to regulate the heat pad. Last but not least, I think would be calcium and vitamins. It's running about $12.99. This is something that I got at my local pet store. You can potentially find that cheaper elsewhere, but since it was at a physical location, it's probably a little bit more expensive than you would normally get it online. So that's going to be it for this whole setup. I think over and all it ran me about $131 and some change. Of course, it's going to be different with tax, different areas and where you shop. You could potentially do it for cheaper, but for a naturalistic setup, I think around $130, $135, you can get something pretty much in this ballpark here. That does not include the leopard gecko, which can range between $40 all the way up until a couple $100, of course depending on the morph. That is it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed watching. If you have any questions, comment down below. Nowhere near an expert on leopard geckos or reptiles in general, but this is just my knowledge and how much I spent on his setup. If you guys have any suggestions on how to improve his setup or his health or the supplementing, then comment down below. But with all that being said, I will catch you guys on the next one. Peace out.